can get today, and then welcome. We're glad to have you. So we have a lot of guest speakers through here, and everybody just has a little different story. So do you feel like that's working and you're ready? Okay, well, thank you so much for coming in. I don't want to take any more of your time because we already shortened the day on you, but go Warriors. Yeah. Okay, thank you for coming. Okay.
Hi, my name is Chris Norris. And it's funny that you mentioned like taking a story, right? Because we all have different stories we tell. Our lives become stories. And that's one of the things that I want to talk to you about today. You guys know what audacity is, right? It takes a lot of bravery to come up and say that I can give you something that might be life-changing. It's not easy, but it is simple. There's 3 steps. You all got the handouts in front of you. 3 steps that can change the way you look at life. So when I decided to return to school, I was 38 years old. So I have a much different story than you all have. I didn't go to university straight out of high school. I was chasing paychecks. I was trying to live life and find out what happened because I had no goal, I had no focus. So my story is different than yours. And I want you to understand that your story is important. What you've been through has an emotional tie to it. And that becomes a story. And I can inspire somebody else to. Now these are important keys to what I want to tell you. When I decided to go back to school and chase a PhD, that was a crazy idea at 38 years old. Like I had an associate's at that point. 38 years old, I decided to return to school to do my undergrad work and pursue a PhD in psychology. I happened to be visiting my sister and my nieces out in Virginia at the time. And I was excited, but still am, to anybody who wants to listen to me talk about going back to school and achieving something that I had dreamed about for a long time. I'm talking to my niece, adorable little 5, 6 years old at the time. Big eyes, hanging on every word I had to say. She was just excited to be part of that conversation, right? She was Uncle Riss, because I was not Uncle Chris, I was Uncle Riss. And kind of heartbreaking when she could finally pronounce a K, but she looked up at me with these big eyes and she was just hanging on every word. And she's like, I have to go to the doctor a lot. Okay, girl. Your mama takes good care of you. Your mama makes sure that you have what you need so you can be healthy. And this poor kid who has to go to the doctor a lot still, she's just excited to be part of that conversation, you know? And I am the favorite uncle, just so that's on the record. I'm like, baby girl, there's a difference. I'm not going to be a medical doctor. I'm not going to help people with their physical ailments. I'm going to help with emotions. I'm going to help with the way you think, the way you interact. I'm going to help people with their minds. I'm going to be a psychologist. And those big, beautiful eyes, they narrowed. Her brow kind of furrows. Oh. I thought you meant a real doctor. I love my niece, I do, but that was a moment my excitement turned to, I don't know what, but it was just heartbreaking in that moment when my little 5-year-old niece just kind of rejected this excitement that I had. That's kind of the funny part about emotions. Does anybody know the physical and the biochemistry difference between fear and excitement? Absolutely nothing. You could do a bioscan of somebody who's experiencing fear and a bioscan of somebody experiencing excitement, and you would not be able to tell those lives apart. From a brain chemistry standpoint and what's happening inside your body, they're nearly identical. It's about mindset. Mindset can change in an instant. I had this whole thing prepared, and then I find out that I have 15 minutes less than I thought I had. How do I roll with that? That's part of code theory as well. So, my story is not your story. I did not have a horrible youth, but it wasn't good. I had undiagnosed dyslexia until I was a junior in high school. I was not diagnosed with ADHD until I was in my mid-30s. And suddenly a lot of things made sense. But I remember a time that I was 15 years old, so a little bit younger than y'all are now. And I was in my buddy's basement room, and we're reading graphic novels. You guys seen the Sandman series on Netflix? Good series. It was originally a graphic novel by Neil Gaiman. He also wrote Coraline, and he was the start of the characters from the show Lucifer. He's an amazing storyteller, which is kind of important to me. If you haven't noticed, I'm all about stories. But this story, when I was 15 years old, it was bad, guys. I mean, I had the black nail polish, the thumbs through the sleeves, the baggy pants, the chain that went down my ankles. It was bad. But that was kind of that point in my life where I was not sure who I was or where I was going. But I was reading this graphic novel by Neil Gaiman, and it is now on Netflix as a live action. And Morpheus, he's the Lord of Dreams, is an immortal character, and he's in charge of dreaming lands and stuff like that. So when he's on this quest, for lack of a better term, to regain some lost items he had, he's in the hell, and he's looking for a helmet that he had lost. And he's challenging this demon to what was called the oldest game, which is basically a metaphysical game of one-upmanship. You start with something small, and your opponent has to come up with something bigger that could destroy that thing. You said so. I'm a direwolf. Well, I'm a hunter. Well, I'm a snake fighting the hunter, and so on and so forth. And Morpheus and this demon keep going and going and going, and they get up to the level of the cosmos. And they're talking about novas and supernovas and the destruction of worlds. And this demon, he says, I'm probably gonna mess this line up, but I'm the darkness, I'm the end of everything, I am the judgment at the end of all. Then what will you be, Dream Lord? And at this point, Morpheus is lying on the floor of hell, beaten, bloody, and dying. Because this metaphysical battle sucks out your life energy, right? So he's laying there, and in this like whisper of a breath, he says, I am hope. For what can kill hope? The only thing that can kill hope is ourselves. We can stop hoping in ourselves, which is what brought me to where I am now. And I didn't realize the impact of that statement until many, many years later, when I discovered hope theory. Hope theory is a cognitive psychological theory that ties in goal setting, pathway thinking, and agency. Agency is self-efficacy of believers. Well, I'm sure that everybody has kind of been taught about SMART goals, sustainable, achievable, measurable, all that. Those are important tools. And it's important to have goals, right? Anybody here already decided on their university that they're attending? Yeah. Some nods, some hands. Congratulations. Awesome. If you haven't made that decision, it's okay. There are a lot of options for you. But it's good to have the goals, right? Now, one thing that happens when you have goals is you over-focus on them. And you forget about the path that you're on. You forget about the story that you're creating. And you forget to look around you. What is his name? Munson. Brian Munson wrote a book, F Your Feelings. It's a kind of a self-motivating neurological standpoint. He's one of those guys that goes out and just like spends the weekend training with Navy SEALs because why not, right? That's that kind of guy. But he has this one section in his book talks about moving the goalposts or moving the chains. Because if all you're thinking about, and I'm not a sports guy, but this is a great analogy. If all you're thinking about is the goal line, you're always looking 100 yards downfield. That's all you're focused on. That 100 yards is going to be forever away from you. But if you worry about the first down, if you worry about moving the chains, one play at a time, you're in the moment. You're enjoying what you're doing, and you don't feel so diminished by not reaching that 100-yard mark. So you move the chains. You enjoy the moment that you're in, because if all you're focused on in that, it will never come. Focus on the moment. Keep that in your mind. Focus on the moment. Because the other thing that happens with over-focusing on your goals, what happens afterwards? We had some hands for, what's your idea after university? Graduate school? Yeah? What are you going to graduate school for? That's a good one. I was actually in physical therapy for quite a long time when I blew out my shoulder. But sometimes people forget they don't have the next step. There's something that happens. It's called the Olympic blues. Has anybody heard of this? It's not very well known. Yeah, of course you two have. You heard me practice the same thing. The Olympic blues happens, and this has been deeply studied. When you have a goal, such as an Olympian, you spend your entire life, decades, training for this one moment, and you get there and you win the gold medal. You'd think you'd be just over the moon, right? Excited. All those endorphins, all the dopamine flooding. And then you crash. It's not true clinical depression, but it is an adjustment period. It's almost a period of mourning. Because people have lost who they are. They identified so much with, I'm going to be a gold medalist. And then what? People over-focus on their goals so deeply that they become that entirety in their identity. And they lose themselves. So focusing on your goals is great, but do not over-focus. Have an idea, not necessarily a plan, an idea of what comes next. Enjoy the story that you're in your moment. So that's my little 2 cents on goals. Now we have pathway thinking. Pathway thinking is what's going to happen when something goes wrong. What happens if you don't get into your physical therapy school? There you go. That's it. You find something else. Or you find a different school, or choose a different path. I've had several career paths in my time. I've been a mechanic, a welder, was a tattoo artist for 14 years, 15 years. I owned my own business. But that business that I loved started costing me something that I was no longer willing to pay. So I had to find something else. I was no longer willing to give up the nights and weekends that running a tattoo shop took away from my daughter. I was no longer willing to pay that price. So I left a career that I deeply loved. Now, I told you that I'm diagnosed with dyslexia. I'm diagnosed with ADHD. But there were other tragedies. I lost my father to suicide. I got divorced. I closed my business that I loved. These all take impacts, and I had identified so much with every one of these things that I lost who I was. Kind of that real moment of clarity was when I came out of the grief from losing my father to suicide. I was not in a good marriage at the time, and that obviously ended, thankfully. That's a hindsight kind of thing. But as soon as I was clear of that and trying to find myself, I'd lost my father, I'd lost my business, I'd lost my wife. The only thing I had was myself and my daughter and my dog. I had to rebuild my life. And I decided that I wanted to help people. There was a moment in tattooing, and it will always be one of my favorite tattooing stories. The way the shop was set up was we had our 3 booths right next to each other. It was almost all on a stage. We were all musicians, and we kind of built this tattoo shop to look like a little concert hall. We We had no appointments that night, which was really weird for none of the three of us to have appointments. And this family walks in, 2 brothers, my father. It happened to be the anniversary of their other brother's death. And these tattoos, they were all matching, about this big each. Had the kid's name, birthday, the skull of a deer. Half hour, 45-minute tattoo. But we had them lined up, and the 3 of us, because we didn't have any appointments, we were able to do those 3 tattoos at the same time. And in that hour it took us to set up tattoo, there was so many tears and laughters and stories that got told in that 1 hour, and how much healing happened in that room. It's amazing to have. It's amazing to have the audacity to be in that moment and know that you're part of their memory forever, and they're a part of yours. I love the idea of helping and giving back to people. Anybody who comes up here to talk in front of you with their own agenda in mind, or only their own agenda. Because yes, I do get a dopamine kick by being able to help. That's okay. But my focus is helping. My focus is giving back to people. To tell my story, that it might inspire someone else's. So I had a lot of tragedy. I lost myself. Where does that leave me? It leaves me returning to school. It leaves me at the point where I had to rediscover myself and find a goal. I loved helping people. I loved telling stories. And I needed to save the world that I couldn't save my father from. So I went to psychology. Most people hear the word psychology and they think of lying on a couch and talking about your childhood trauma and how your mom didn't love you and all that stuff. That's not what psychology is. It's not even what therapy is. That is a form of therapy. Therapy is an umbrella term. Psychology is an even larger umbrella term. What I'm going to school for, what I'm achieving my PhD in, is social psychology. It's how we interact with each other. It's how we interact as families, as friends, as classrooms, as companies, your coworkers. That has helped me a lot in my current career path, which is kind of a project manager / trainer. I teach people how to do Six Sigma. Has anybody heard of Six Sigma or Lean principles in manufacturing? Yeah. Okay. It's basically the scientific study of how to do things most efficiently. And the Six Sigma aspect of that is using statistics to prove you've done something more efficient, or no, we haven't done it efficient enough to warrant the cost, scrap that program. You have the statistics to back that up. So the social psychology has given me assistance in my profession, but it also allows me to help people. It allows me to teach people that it's okay to change, that it's okay to find your own story and tell people, to inspire other people, to have the audacity to stand in front of a group of strangers and tell your story. And that's really what I hope you guys take away. This theory on Snyder's hope is fantastic. It's what my dissertation is completely based off of. Those of you that don't know, the dissertation is the end-all paper before you get to call yourself a doctor. It takes months, if not years, to write on paper. So I'm about to start that process, and when I do that, I submit it to a board. The board reads it over, and they approve it. Then I get to stand in front of a group of other people who are already doctors, already psychologists, and they get to ask me any question they want about my dissertation, about related theories, why I did something, why I didn't do something else, why this psychologist over here has already made my point, how I remade the point. I have to answer every one of those questions, sitting alone in front of a board of other doctors. And then I get to call myself doctor. That takes a lot of belief. To be able to stand in front of strangers and prove yourself to them. That's Snyder's third pillar, is agency. Belief in yourself. Because when things go sideways, and life will go sideways on you, when you have those moments where something goes sideways, I can believe in you all day long. Your parents, your teachers, your friends, they can all believe in you. But until you believe in yourself, you're not going anywhere. It's good to have the support structure. I'm not knocking that. But you have to believe in yourself. Otherwise, you're fighting a losing battle. So, we have goal setting, we have pathway thinking, and we have agency thinking. I hope you can take at least one of those three pillars and change something about how you view life. As you prepare for college, trade school, getting a job, becoming a parent, whatever your life is changing to, this is the theory that will put you in the right mindset, that will change fear to hope, fear to excitement. I appreciate you letting me come here. It was very exciting for me. I hope you guys got something out of it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. You want
Yeah,
questions?
yeah. Do we have time?
We-
I rushed that. Okay.
You were probably worried that you had to rush it. So.
I was, yeah.
Yep, you're okay. We have we have about 10 minutes.
Okay.
So
Does anybody have any questions or thoughts, or just want me to shut up? I'll take
Shut up,
any.
please.
Okay, thanks,
No, I'm
baby.
kidding. I love you.
Grounded.
Please don't.
Well, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you very much.
I have a couple. I always have questions.
Wow.
I always have questions. You know me. Where are you going to school like right now? What is that? What are you at?
Walden University, it's an online.
Okay.
It had a good accreditation program. It is open because I'm a full-time employee and a dad, so online school is the best option for me. I do miss sitting in a classroom and having discussions and debates in a one-on-one. I do miss that, but for where I am in life, online school was the best option.
Where did you get your associate's degree in before you decided to become a mechanic and then a welder and then construction and then PhD student?
So my first degree is an associate's degree in information technology and visual communications. Basically, it's building websites and making flyers and handouts and web advertisements and all that. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I thought it was going to be a great way to be artistic and make money. And I have plenty of friends who are professional graphic designers and web developers that absolutely love what they do. I hated it. Like, I hated making the same website over and over and over again. There was no creative outlet for me. So that's when I became a tattoo artist. I took a huge risk, had a lot of support from friends and family that trusted me to stab them with a needle and ink, and 15 years later, I ended up changing paths. But that degree that I spent a lot of time working on and achieving, I ended up hating, and I had to find a new life path, not because of any tragedy, but because I didn't like where I was. I didn't like where I ended up, and that's okay too. You can change your mind. You can become something new. You can reinvent yourself every day. So I reinvented myself. I was no longer going to be a graphic designer. Funny enough, though, I actually still use those skills in work today when I'm developing applications for new processes. I know how to get into the back end of coding and change something if I need to. So even though at the time that was a useless degree and I felt like I wasted a whole bunch of time and money, I was able to take that skill set and apply it somewhere else. So there's always a lesson learned, even when you don't realize it until after.
I think that's interesting because you changed career paths, and then we had a different speaker last week. Did he kind of not do the same thing? He had his degree, and then he's doing something totally different now too. And I love bringing people like you in because I think so many times seniors in high school think that they have to do exactly what they're going to do for the rest of their life, and we don't. And I've shared this with them too. Like, this is not my first career, right? Like, it's not my first, right? And that's okay. But I was missing something in my life, kind of how you talked about, and teaching checked that box, which I wasn't getting in my other.
You have to have that fulfillment.
Yeah.
You know, the primary reason people leave jobs, not necessarily careers, but jobs, it's the relationship they have with their direct boss and the fulfillment they feel in their job. Unfortunately, that one kind of gets backburnered because a lot of people just get frozen in what they're doing. Like people I work with at this company, they've been out there, you know, throwing foam off those machines for 30-something years. You guys can do something else. You don't have to stay here, but they're comfortable. And once you get comfortable, you get complacent. And that's a lot of it. So to be able to find something that's fulfilling will profit you a lot more than going to a job that you hate every day, or a degree program that you realize is not the path you want to end up in. Don't waste time or money on it. Find a new path. Make a plan. Follow it. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
When you get your degree, will you be able to do basically like anything in the psychology realm?
It depends on what state you're in, actually. Like Nebraska, to be a therapist, you have to have an APA accredited clinical psychology degree. Otherwise, I could be a counselor, but I could never advertise myself as a therapist. Nebraska makes a distinction between the two. I will have a K-Prep accreditation on my master's degree, so I can be a counselor in Nebraska, but I cannot be a therapist in Nebraska. Again, that's the difference with clinical and the other forms of psychology, social psychology or organizational psychology. Those get into teaching and research more so than they traditionally. So, depending on the state, because there's different legal requirements when you advertise or offer certain services, it's dependent on the state legality. Yes, ma'am.
Kind of going off of what she asked, what are you specifically going to do with your degree?
I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts. I would love to teach. I don't know if that's going to be on a high school level or a collegiate level, but I love teaching. I love teaching adults too, like outside of traditional classroom settings. What I do at work when I get to teach people the new processes or the safety regulations and certify them on different pieces of equipment. I love giving knowledge to people, so I do want to do teaching. I do want to do public speaking. I'm pretty new at this, so I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to try. And I love stories, so I want to take the knowledge I have and put it in a book so somebody else can read and enjoy the knowledge I have along with the stories I have to tell. Yes?
Just a random question. You were an author for a while. Why'd you stop?
I didn't. I just haven't published anything new lately. I still write.
Okay. I didn't
But
know.
I'm also really deep into writing, school papers, so I don't have so much time to write vampire and werewolf novels. She makes a point. I have self-published a fiction book on Amazon, and that was a blast. That was exciting, and it did pretty well actually. But life got in the way, and I haven't gotten to publish another one since. But that's a fun thing to do. It was kind of a side project. I never thought it would take off the way it did, but it's another way I got to tell a story. Yeah, that's out there on the internet somewhere.
What's it called again?
What?
What's the name of your book?
I don't know if I want to tell you that.
Oh.
You can go look for it.
I totally was gonna look for it.
I'll
yeah.
find it for you, Miss Chris.
Okay, thanks. We'll look it up later. Okay.
Blackjack, Chronicles of Vincent Black, Vampire Assassin.
Sounds cool.
It is.
That's one way to describe it.
I don't know. I'm gonna look it up.
No, it did pretty well.
Good.
So yeah. Any other questions? Or?
We have about 1 minute.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much. I appreciate you giving me the chance.